Anybody else craving a frittata after watching this episode? Damn, I'm hungry. This is a review of the Star Trek Enterprise episode Hatchery. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know how Captain Archer, discovering the joys of fatherhood, nearly destroys the ship, be warned, spoilers beyond this point. As their urgent expedition to locate and destroy the Xindi ultimate weapon continues, Captain Archer and the crew of Enterprise are about to face the hard truth that you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. The omelet is completing their mission. It's a metaphor. So this is during the big Xindi arc that takes up all of Enterprise's third season. The ship is in a region of space uncharted by Starfleet. In addition to the regular Starfleet crew, there is also a detachment of Makos aboard. They're basically space marines brought in to handle the really serious fighting if it comes to that. There are tensions between the Makos and the Starfleet crew, particularly between Lieutenant Reed, Archer's chief tactical officer, and Major Hayes, the leader of the Makos. On the way to a star system where they suspect the Xindi weapon may be under construction, Enterprise stops off at a planet where they've detected a crashed Xindi ship. Archer decides it's worth a look, and a landing party, including Archer, T'Pol, Reed, Trip, and Hayes, heads down there in a shuttle pod. The ship turns out to belong to the Xindi insectoids. Remember, one of the big things about the Xindi is that they aren't a single species, but an alliance of several species. This ship is from the Bug People branch of the organization. While carrying out their search, T'Pol, Reed, and Trip find a heavily armored section that turns out to be a hatchery. Xindi eggs are hanging from the ceiling all over the place. Archer and Hayes enter the hatchery, and while looking around and talking over the situation with the others, a little tentacle reaches out from one of the clusters of eggs and busts a nut right in Archer's face. I think they've got that backwards. The eggs aren't supposed to jizz on you. Back on Enterprise, Dr. Phlox examines Archer and decides that the alien egg jizz was just a defense mechanism, and it's nothing to worry about. A bit later, Trip and T'Pol report to Archer that the Xindi ship was damaged and forced to make an emergency landing on the planet. The dead adult Xindi they found, 2 of which have been brought aboard Enterprise so Phlox can root around in their guts, weren't killed in the crash. They suffocated after transferring all remaining power to the hatchery. They died to save their offspring. But all they did was delay the inevitable. The crashed ship is still losing power, and within another day or so, the life support systems in the hatchery will fail. Archer orders Trip to repair the hatchery and save the eggs. Trip's like, "Excuse me? What about the ultimate weapon we're supposed to find? The annihilation of planet Earth we're supposed to prevent?" Archer's like, "Yeah, I know, but it can wait. Those eggs are the offspring of a sentient species. The Xindi want to destroy Earth because they think humans are ruthless killers. If we save the lives of their children, that proves them wrong." Trip reiterates his protest, but Archer stands firm. The captain has made his decision. The eggs can't be removed from the ship without harming them, so Enterprise will remain in orbit until the life support systems on the ship can be stabilized. Archer himself leads the repair team. His decision doesn't sit well with most of the crew. While talking over how to operate a Xindi shuttlecraft they've salvaged from the ship, Trip, Reed, and Ensign Mayweather voice their concerns. Reed's like, "I know he's the captain and all, but isn't it a little weird that he's risking all of our lives, not to mention the success of our mission, to stay here and save some bug eggs?" Tucker, as the senior officer in the group and Archer's best friend, tries to stick up for him, saying, "Hey, these creatures need our help. It's the right thing to do." But he obviously doesn't really feel that way, so he pivots to, "At least we'll have a few extra days to study the enemy's technology before we run into them again." In sickbay, Phlox has cracked open one of the dead Xindi recovered from the ship and is rooting around in their guts, which would presumably be delicious, sautéed in olive oil with some chopped vegetables and served over pasta. Phlox tells Archer that the Xindi insectoids are genderless and reproduce asexually, with each Xindi adult capable of producing eggs. That would explain why they had a hatchery aboard their spaceship. Phlox presumes every Xindi insectoid ship has one. He also estimates that the eggs on that crashed ship should hatch within about a week. Phlox recommends that Archer get some sleep, but Archer refuses. "I need to complete those repairs. The eggs must be preserved." The eggs. He seems fine. There's an accident in the hatchery as the repair crew tries to power up the systems. An explosion blows one of the crew across the room and breaks one of the eggs. Archer ignores his blown-up crew member and calls a medical emergency for the preemie insectoid that was in the egg. Phlox is unable to save the life of the tiny bug baby. Archer tells T'Pol to see if she can find out anything about Xindi burial rituals. T'Pol's like, "Are you going to have a funeral for the dead bug?" And Phlox is over there still holding the thing like, "If Hoshi can't find anything about their burial rites, can I have it? I bet this little fucker would be delicious roasted with some garlic butter." Archer orders Trip to use Enterprise's antimatter to restore power to the hatchery. Trip estimates they'll lose a third of their reserves, which, as Reed points out, would be bad on multiple fronts. Enterprise uses antimatter for fuel as well as in its offensive weapons. T'Pol's like, "I'll talk some sense into him." She goes to see Archer, who is still working in the hatchery, and says, "Hey, boss, the antimatter transfer is a no-can-do. It'll run us too short." Archer's like, "But the eggs!" And T'Pol says, "Yeah, or on the other hand, but the Earth and its population of billions of people." Archer says, "Look, T'Pol, the Xindi in these eggs are innocent. If we let them die, we'll just be showing the rest of the Xindi that they're right about us. I don't know how Vulcans do things, but we humans don't set our morality aside when things get rough. Since when? It's a recent development." T'Pol continues to argue with Archer. She says maybe we should call Admiral Forrest at Starfleet and discuss the situation. So Archer says, "Oh, you're going to big-time me now? Threaten to call the boss? Snitch me out? You know what? You're relieved of duty. How about that? You and your egg-hating ass. Major Hayes, take this anti-eggite back to the ship and confine her to her quarters." Later on, after Archer has returned to the ship and had a shower, Trip pays him a visit and says, "Hey, so relieving T'Pol of duty and locking her up is a little extreme, ain't it?" Archer says, "She disobeyed my orders in front of the crew. I can't have that shit. And more importantly, her insubordination threatened the survival of my cherished eggs." Trip says he can't imagine the Xindi going to this much trouble to safeguard human offspring if the roles were reversed. And Archer goes, "Trip, did I ever tell you about my great-granddaddy in the war?" Oh, Jesus, here we go. My great-granddaddy fought in the eugenics wars. It doesn't matter for which side, that's not the point. The point is, his troops were attacked by the enemy, and there was a school located between their positions. So if my great-granddaddy returned fire, it would put all those kids at risk. So my great-granddaddy radioed to the enemy and asked for a ceasefire so they could evacuate that school. See, Trip, even in war, there are rules. What happened? Did they evacuate the school? Yeah, and then my granddaddy asked the other side for help with the evacuation, and once the enemy troops were all inside, he blew up the school, killed every last one of those motherfuckers. It was dope. My granddaddy was a badass. Anyway, save those eggs. Trip talks his way past the guards at the door, one of whom is played by Daniel Day Kim. What's up, Gavin? And discusses the situation with T'Pol. They agree that Archer's increasingly single-minded obsession with the hatchery is endangering the ship, and they need to do something. T'Pol suggests getting Archer to submit to a medical examination. If Phlox finds evidence that the captain has been compromised somehow, they can relieve him of duty on medical grounds. Before they can carry out their plan, Enterprise is attacked by a Xindi ship. Reed is in command at the time, and he gives the order to fire torpedoes. The torpedoes hit their mark, and the Xindi ship is destroyed. Right then, Archer arrives on the bridge. Reed says, "We were attacked by a Xindi insectoid ship, sir, but don't worry, we won." Archer's like, "What did you do, blow them up? Dude, they could have helped us to repair the hatchery. What the fuck? The eggs! Am I the only person on this ship who cares about the eggs?" Archer relieves Reed of duty as well, placing Major Hayes in charge of tactical, which really chaps Reed's ass, since he and Hayes are embroiled in a long-running manly pissing contest. Archer is loading up some antimatter to take down to the hatchery when Trip and Phlox walk in. Trip's like, "Hey, so I just heard that you told Hoshi to send out a distress call to the Xindi. Don't you think that's a little risky since they're trying to, kill us?" Archer says that it's definitely a risk, but if they keep playing it safe, they'll never save the eggs. Phlox asks Archer to come to sickbay for a checkup. Archer initially refuses, so Phlox says, "Come with me to sickbay or I'll relieve you of command right now. You're threatening the safety of everyone on this ship with your eccentric behavior." Unfortunately, Phlox's examination doesn't show anything unusual. Trip's like, "Okay, the captain is nuts, but we can't prove it. He's got the Makos on his side. He's got Hoshi about to send a distress call that will attract a whole bunch of Xindi to our position. I think it's time for a good old-fashioned mutiny. While Trip plots the mutiny with T'Pol and Reed, Archer goes back down to the hatchery, where the big day is finally here. The eggs are hatching! Archer tells the other members of the crew to return to the ship and leave him here. Reed and T'Pol rush Major Hayes and the Makos on the bridge, leading to a standoff. Meanwhile, Trip heads down to the hatchery, where he finds Archer, who has chilled out a lot since the eggs started hatching. I guess Parenthood agrees with him. Little baby bugs are crawling all over him, and he speaks to them in soft, soothing tones, and Trip's like, "To hell with this," and shoots him. Back on Enterprise, Reed, T'Pol, and the other officers loyal to them, including Travis and Hoshi, take control of the bridge from Hayes and the Makos. Archer is returned to the ship, and once he's been treated for his baby fever and sent to his quarters to rest, Phlox explains what's been going on to T'Pol, Trip, Reed, and Hayes. It was all because of that egg that jizzed in his face way back at the start of all this. Right, we figured. I assumed it was just a defense mechanism, but it was actually something else. We know, the substance caused the captain to imprint on the eggs, and as a result, he developed a single-minded obsession to protect the eggs at all costs. Yes. Trip and T'Pol leave. Reed and Hayes have a quick convo where Hayes is like, you didn't have to do a mutiny. You could have just explained what was going on and asked for my help. Reed says, we thought about it, but we couldn't take the chance that you'd side with the captain. And Hayes says, yeah, I probably would have. Never mind, mutiny was the way to go. Trip visits Archer, who is resting up in his quarters, and he says, hey, I'm sorry about shooting you. Archer says, it's okay, it was the right thing to do. Let's just forget about it. How are the babies? I ask out of normal curiosity, not chemically induced paranoid obsession. Trip says, they're fine. Phlox says they should be okay until another Xindi ship shows up. Archer starts to get ready to return to duty, but Trip talks him into staying here and resting for a while longer. Archer's like, I guess I should take it easy. I don't want another mutiny on my hands. Ha ha ha, yeah. But hey, if you're hungry later, maybe we can have breakfast. Chef's serving scrambled eggs. Too soon. The end! What an episode of Enterprise. As is frequently the case with Enterprise, and also with its predecessor, Star Trek Voyager, Hatchery starts with a solid premise that holds a ton of story potential, but the longer the episode goes on, the more apparent it becomes that its creators don't really know what to do with that premise. It's a good concept, it makes a couple of interesting choices and features some nice character moments, but overall, For me, the biggest problem with the episode is that we in the audience realize what's going on with Archer way, way, way before the rest of the characters do. As soon as that egg sac ejaculates in Archer's face, we know something's going to happen. And the first time Archer makes a point of sticking around to repair the damaged hatchery, which is like the next scene, it's obvious what that something is. That's not really a problem, but does it really need to take half the episode or more for Trip, T'Pol, and the others to come to the obvious conclusion that Archer is not behaving rationally and they need to do something? It's clear from very early on what's happening, and the story unfolds along a straight and fairly predictable line without any real twists or turns, while our heroes, other than Archer, just kinda stand around watching uncomfortably, occasionally sharing their concerns with each other. Until finally, when the episode is almost over, they decide to take action. Likewise, Archer's obsession with the eggs goes pretty much how you would expect. He takes a load to the face from an egg. He becomes unreasonably dedicated to protecting the hatchery. He does protect the hatchery. The eggs hatch. Trip stuns him and takes him back to the ship. And when he wakes up, he's all better. Okay, that's nice. What was the point? Phlox makes it clear that because of the effects of the alien chemical, Archer wasn't responsible for his actions. He wasn't consciously aware that he was putting the ship and their mission in jeopardy for the sake of the eggs. Nothing Archer does while under the influence of the chemical causes any lasting damage. He doesn't really have anything to regret when he comes back to his senses, and even if he had done something irrevocable, it wouldn't really have been his fault. What's the message here? New parents should try not to be too obsessed with their kids? Helping vulnerable civilians who belong to the opposing side during a war is a risk not worth taking? There doesn't seem to be an intentional message, nor any meaningful development or lasting effects on the characters, which leaves the episode feeling like it was just a way of killing time for an hour. A premise the creators were able to unwind long enough to allow them to fill this much of the season's episode order. It could have been worse. Enterprise did way lousier episodes than this one, but it's kind of a waste of time when all's said and done, isn't it? Not a total waste, however. Like I mentioned earlier, the writer of this episode, Andre Bormanis, working from a story he co-wrote with Michael Sussman, makes a couple of interesting choices. Even though it's apparent from the jump why Archer is so determined to protect the Xindi eggs, the episode does carve out a tiny bit of space to make the point that, chemical inducement aside, what Archer wants to do is not a bad thing fundamentally. The story Archer tells Trip about his great-grandfather refusing to counterattack an enemy until civilians could be evacuated from the area rings true, as does his insistence that even in war there should still be room for humanity. It's an idea many of us obviously still need to internalize today. It doesn't really fit into the rest of the episode. Archer's efforts to repair the hatchery and save the Xindi offspring are dismissed by his officers as foolish and unjustified long before they notice anything wrong, and his behavior soon becomes undeniably irrational. But it's nice to have a momentary nod in the direction of compassion all the same. The episode also uses the situation to emphasize the tensions between the Starfleet crew and the Makos. One of the most egregious missed opportunities on Star Trek Voyager is how little the creators of that show did to explore the conflict between the Starfleet crew and the former members of the Maquis who joined the crew after the first episode. Instead of an ongoing issue that shaped the direction of the series, the Maquis were fully integrated into the crew pretty much right away, and the conflict between the two sides only came up intermittently in a handful of episodes. On Enterprise, it's not quite the same situation. The Starfleet crew and the Makos aren't enemies. They're on the same side, but they are established as being separate services with distinct philosophies that don't always align. The Starfleet crew and the Makos each have their doubts about the other. Each believe their side is better equipped to carry out the mission than the other. Even small but enduring visual details, like the fact that the Makos have their own uniforms, help to distinguish the two groups from each other and underline their separation. In Hatchery, we see those tensions reach a breaking point, as the Makos remain loyal to the increasingly erratic Captain Archer, while the Starfleet officers decide their duty to the ship and the mission is higher than their duty to the captain. It's a clear contrast. It makes sense, the Makos being a much more militant organization than Starfleet, with a stronger, more unquestioning devotion to the chain of command, and it's personified in the rivalry between Reed and Hayes, which makes the conflict more concrete, easier to grasp, and more dramatically satisfying. The Starfleet Mako bits are the best part of the episode, I think. This is the last of this current batch of reviews of episodes about Orphans, and viewed in that context, Hatchery is an interesting deviation from the norm. The other episodes I've reviewed in this batch either characterize the Orphans themselves as a threat, as in Charlie X, or frame the presence of the orphan as an opportunity for the captain, or whoever the main character attached to the orphan is, to show compassion, or make a hard choice, or experience some growth. In Hatchery, none of those things happens. It's not the orphans, the eggs, later the Xindi hatchlings, who are the threat, but Archer's obsession with protecting them. The hero acting paternally toward the orphan is seen as a bad thing, a threat to the ship. And when it's over, everybody's fine, and nobody seems to have learned anything about the orphans or about themselves. I guess maybe Archer learns not to stand too close to hanging clusters of alien eggs, but when is that ever going to come up again? Those are my thoughts on Hatchery. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would, if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. That's it for this batch of reviews looking at episodes about Orphans. Please join me next time as we begin a brand new batch of reviews of episodes united by a common theme. And in this new batch, that theme is nothing. There's no theme. The next batch is a grab bag, a randomly selected episode from each of the 6 Star Trek series that I cover in these retro reviews. We begin, of course, with Star Trek the Original Series, and the episode I have pulled from the grab bag is The Mark of Gideon. That's next week. See you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.